What's up, everyone? I'm Never a Dull Moment, and today we're going to be taking a look at my 2014 Honda Cb500F. Now, there are a lot of variations of this bike. There's different CB variants. There's a Cb500X, the Cb500R, the CBR500R, so it gets kind of convoluted. They're really all based on the same engine, I believe the same chassis, a lot of very similar components, but there's some slight differences between each of them. This specific model, the 13 to 15, is exactly the same bike, and then after that they made a couple of changes. I believe after 2015 they did some little tweaking to the engine, so you get a little bit more torque. It's like 4% in the mid-range. So really not like, if you're between bikes and you're seeing a way better deal on like a 2015 versus a 2016, it's really nothing that I would say is like a huge deal. And this model has been really, really successful for Honda. We're going to go ahead and give it a little ride around town and see what I think. Now, just for anyone that might have questions, this bike is completely stock. The only little mod/accessory I have on here is this tank bag. Other than that, it's, completely stock exhaust, stock sprockets, stock air filter, all that. It's got less than 4,000 miles on it, so I haven't even had to change a lot of that stuff out. So this should give you a pretty accurate depiction of what this bike's like in very stock form. It's a pretty hot day here in Colorado Springs. And speaking of which, I wanted to bring up that Colorado Springs, where I live, it's at 6,000 feet of elevation, which I only bring up because elevation does impact things like acceleration, fuel mileage, all that sort of fun stuff. So any numbers that you might see, any things you might try to decipher from my ride, take it with a grain of salt, because elevation can definitely put an impact on that. Now, I'm hoping that you can see I have my my active fuel mileage on right now, so you can kind of see as I'm riding along at different speeds, different gears, what kind of gas mileage I'm getting. But again, it's not going to be completely accurate. To be upfront, I've been getting it on average anywhere from 50 to 55 mpg. Now, I don't ride super aggressive. I don't like to go crazy fast all the time. I do like to accelerate fast out of stoplights, and I do a pretty decent amount of city riding. I do a good mix of freeway. I'm sure you can get much better gas mileage out of this. I think I could probably get 70, 75 without too much trouble. But just so you know, a real world example, I haven't been trying to hypermile this bike and get the best mileage I can out of it. Now, before we get along too far here, let's go ahead and talk about the instrument cluster, the controls, the gauges. This gauge cluster that's being used on this bike is something that's borrowed, I think, from many other bikes. It's a very common Honda part. I do like it a lot. It's really nothing special. It's not like a statement piece in any way, but I think it does work quite well. Try and slide myself in here beside this Nissan. Things you can't do in a car. But yeah, I do like the gauge. Not really anything to write home about. It's got your time, it's got your fuel on the left, it's got your miles per hour, loud and proud in the center. Nice and big, and you got your tachometer that kind of sweeps through the entire gauge cluster. Up at the top, they're not illuminated right now, but you'll kind of see, like when I come to a stop, you'll see the neutral light pop up, and you got a couple of lights up there that have things like your turn signals. You have your turn signals here, and you've got like your temperature gauge and your high beam. All that kind of just stays quiet unless you're actually needing it. So nothing too special there, but I do like this a lot. Some people think it looks kind of boring. I actually do like I like that it's small. I'm not in love with the style, but I like that it's small. Kind of stays out of your way. You have kind of this full, clear field of view looking out front, and it's kind of just down there to peek at if you need it. Hand controls, really pretty standard affair as well, nothing too fancy here. The only little quirk that this bike has is that the horn is actually in the spot where your turn signals would normally be. So these are flipped from kind of your standard model. On your other side you have your hazard light, so it is kind of this nice mirror between the left and right. This did bother me a little bit when I first got the bike. A lot of people, when they ride them, they accidentally hit the horn as opposed to the turn signals, which get a bit annoying. Honestly, after maybe 2 or 3 rides, I got completely used to it, and it really hasn't been a problem. There we go. Go ahead and accelerate here. Just sort of easing into it. This kind of traffic, I really don't push it hard. I don't like to cut between lanes, anything like that. You could call me a boring rider, you could call me a safe rider. Whatever you like. But here we are cruising up at speed, getting up to about 47, 48 miles an hour. I am in 5th gear, chugging along, 4,000 RPM. No big deal. Happy to chug along here. The engine does not mind being lugged too much. I would say it's a bit happier towards your mid-range, or I would say like between 4,000 and 6,000 RPM is kind of when it's happiest. A little bit of vibration kicks in when you're right around, I think it's about 5,000 RPM. See if I can click into gear here. There we go. kind of blipped the throttle there. That was a little bit jarring. But yeah, you get a little bit of vibration. It's like this very specific RPM. I think it's right above 5. Not really something that I notice a whole lot. But if you're sitting at just the right speed and just the right gear, it does start to kind of go, you know, vibrate just a little bit. Nothing too bad. What I like about this bike a lot is that it's extremely balanced. I'm probably going to use the word balanced in this review far too many times, and you'll never want to hear it again. But what I mean by that is that this bike it's really not, it's kind of like this sport naked style. The same kind of goes for the CBR, you know, the 500s, the lower end CBRs. They're this kind of sporty style, but they really don't have that sport performance. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think Honda wanted to kind of give them this suit that looked like sort of sporty, but they're honestly just really great bikes to ride every day. I'll get into 6th here and chug around 50 miles an hour. You got just shy of 50 horsepower in this bike. I think it's about 47 is what I've seen from a few different tests, which is actually a little bit more than you get from the Honda Rebel 500, which has, I mean, some people would get mad if I say like the same engine. It's the same platform, but there are some modifications to it. A little bit different. Harley guys never wave. A couple of modifications to it. They went for more of a low-end torque, kind of that beefy low-end power kind of curve, rather than something that's, you know, a bit higher revving, higher power at the top end. Which I kind of like that has its own character. I can't really say, you know, which one is better. It just depends on what you're doing. Some people might prefer this bike, some people might prefer the Rebel. It's not like honestly, it's not like a terribly exciting engine. It's not got any sort of weird quirks. It's pretty standard, but that's really not a bad thing, especially if you're a new rider, if you're looking to get a bike, you know, learn the ropes, get something that'll get you around town, learn how to ride, maybe push it a little bit on the track, or, you know, some other environment. It'll be happy in a lot of those situations, and it'll also be happy to take home on the ride back from the track, or to ride, you know, every day. Throw some saddlebags on, get your groceries, you're in college or something like that. You can do a lot on this bike, and that's why I like that it's so balanced. I think the strongest point of this bike, there's two things that are the really big strengths on this bike, and those are the brakes and the chassis / the suspension. Just the handling of this bike overall is very, very good. It's very compliant. It's not razor sharp and, you know, like, oh, it's the best handling, you know, sport bike or anything. It's not like that, but it is just it's happy to go over some big bumps and not, you know, shatter your spine. It's happy to get a nice lean in some turns. It's comfortable at freeway speed. It's comfortable when you're chugging around town going, you know, like 30 miles an hour. Very, very, very well balanced. And the brakes, also, it's got pretty big brakes, pretty solid feeling brakes. I never second guess myself on the brakes because they're very well set up. I think they're maybe a little bit overkill given the amount of power that this bike has, but that's really not a bad thing. I'd rather be able to stop fast when I need to than have, you know, appropriately sized brakes, so to speak. And I'll kind of show you right here. This is just kind of a slow speed turn, but you can see it's pretty easy to just lean over a little bit. Just, and that wasn't a crazy lean or anything, but it's just happy to, you know, just push around, go where you want it. That was kind of a big bump, but, you know, not uncomfortable. Very, very happy to just cruise around and have some fun when you're there. As well, you'll also see me do some clutchless shifting on this bike. It's really happy to shift up a gear without the clutch. That is a skill. It's not got you know, that built in. It's not a feature that the bike has, but it does have a very solid transmission, and it's happy to shift quickly. It's happy to shift without a clutch. It's happy to downshift when you're coming up to a light and people aren't moving. It's also happy to do like kind of these, if you like to do these rolling stops. Couldn't quite do it there, but if you like to kind of come up to a stop and sort of not take your feet off the bike for a second, it's got good balance so that you can do that without much of an issue. That was a much better shift. I'm never afraid to, let's see if this guy wants to get over. I'll be a nice guy. Come on, get over. Come on. All right, he's just got his turn signal on. I'll just go ahead and get out of his way for him. So you got a nice little bit of passing power. Really nothing that's going to rip your head off, but it's enough to where, you know, if you need to speed up, if you know, even at freeway speeds, it's happy to cruise along at those speeds. It's happy to pass up that slow Honda Civic in the far left lane. I did see a video that someone else made. I forget the creator, and I'm sorry about that. But they were talking about their Cb500F, and they said, you know, it's a great bike and everything, but, you know, at freeway speeds, it's just not great, and yada, yada, yada. If you're going to do freeway, you probably want to get a different bike. And I got to say, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I've ridden this bike on the freeway a pretty decent amount. I went out of my way to go on a trip to Canyon City. It's about an hour each way. Really just long, empty stretches of road. The entire time I was just sitting, you know, above 70 miles an hour. Obviously, you know, every once in a while you got to pass someone, and the bike never felt like it was struggling to be on the freeway like that. It didn't feel limited. Now, I mean, I think what a lot of people will say about a bike like this is you know, it's more of their own experience. If they had something, if they're used to riding, you know, liter bikes or just more powerful, more sport-tuned bikes, yeah, those are going to be like your SB650. A lot of engines, you know, they'll make more power than this, and without being all that much bigger. It's definitely more of a gently tuned bike. But it's still plenty fine for everything you need to do. Seat height. Now that we're at a stoplight, seat height on this bike, I will have to put the number on the video because I don't remember it. I am 6 foot and I can stand over this bike. I can get on my tippy toes, got plenty of room for it. Really shouldn't be an issue unless you're, I don't know, maybe under 5'5" or something. This bike shouldn't be an issue for you to get your feet down. And even then, you know, it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with, because, you know, you can get on almost any bike and throw your leg out to the side and make it work. But I don't think that this is an intimidating bike in terms of the seat height. Now the Rebel is much lower. Seat height's very low on that bike. So if you're concerned about that, that might be a better option. But I also think, and I here's my hot take. You ready for my hot take? I think this bike is a better starter bike than the Rebel. The Cb500F has the foot pegs are a little bit higher up, so that means that you can lean it over more. If you want to get a little bit, if you want to, you know, test your skills out on a track, if you want to start leaning over more, you know, you can grow with this bike a bit more because it's a bit more willing to actually lean over and do some of your high-speed turns. You're not going to have to do a bunch of mods or just, you know, get a completely different bike. So that's one point. Second point, it's got a tachometer. How Honda messed up and did not put a tachometer in the Rebel, I don't know. I know it's kind of a tradition, You don't need a tachometer on a bike. I get that. I've had bikes without tachometers. Calm down in the comments. But when you're learning, I mean, I think it's really a good skill. Gear position indicator would have been even better, but this bike does not have a gear position indicator. Frankly, that's not something that really bothers me all that much, but it would be a nice to have. I'm gonna have to get out of this stop and go traffic, or I'm going to be literally a filet mignon by the time I get home. I think it's like 90 something today. It's so hot. I'm opening my jacket. I can't do it. Tapping out. Keep myself in check. Handlebars on this bike I really like. Let me tell you something there, Sonny. I know a lot of people, when they're getting into motorcycles, I don't know what it is. I don't really get it, but everyone likes sport bikes. Almost everyone I meet, they're like, I want to get a sport bike. I'm like, okay, that's cool. The problem with sport bikes, in my humble opinion, is that clip-ons are not comfortable. Clip-ons aren't comfortable. I've also talked at some length about why I don't think that, certain bikes are great for beginners. You can check that episode out on Bikes and Beers. Go over with my friend. So it's not just my dumb opinion, it's me and Michael's dumb opinions. And 2 dumb opinions are better than 1 dumb opinion. Anyways, so clip-ons. Clip-ons, if you don't know what I'm talking about with that, it's they kind of attach down here onto these on these suspension tubes, and they put your arms way lower. They give you much more. They kind of suck you down into the bike, and the reason they do that is for when you're going fast, especially on a track. You want to be lower down. You want to be more aerodynamic. You want to have that lower seat height, because aerodynamics, primarily it's your body that's cutting all the air and making the aerodynamics bad. Now, clip-ons are cool and everything like that. They do have a sporty feel, but they're really uncomfortable. What clip-ons do is they shift all your weight forward, so you're pretty much sitting. Imagine just try this right now. Just put your arms like that and just lean on them, kind of like in a push-up position. You can go on your knees or whatever, but just imagine just like putting the majority of your weight over the front of a bike. That's the only way you can ride them. You can't stretch, you can't, change your position. You're just stuck there. You can put risers on them, but really the better option for day-to-day is just these more standard bars, these flat bars like this. I love the handlebars on this bike. Nice position. They're not too wide, not too narrow. For my frame, they're a really comfortable position. You can always adjust you can do little tweaks in terms of, how they sit. Stock position for me, totally fine, no complaints. And so if you're curious about getting something like a Cb500, this is probably a better option, I'll just tell you, for your first bike. Or honestly, just for any bike that you're going to be riding a lot. It's not about the power, it's not about how good you are as a rider, it's just about the comfort. And you'll probably want to ride more often, because who wants to ride on a horribly uncomfortable bike day in, day out? There we go. Clutchless shift while I'm zipping my jacket up, because I don't want to rip my skin off on the freeway. Ugh. Something little. That guy's on clip-ons. How's it going? That guy was on clip-ons. You see I was all lean forward? So before we hop on the freeway here, I'd like to make a point about windscreens. This bike does not have a windscreen. It was a factory option, and whoever bought this bike originally didn't get it. And honestly, it doesn't bother me. This bike without a windscreen is really not an issue for me. I do like a good windscreen. The Pacific Coast, my other bike, has a massive, wonderful King's windscreen. Will protect all wind from making contact with your body if you just lean down a little bit. This bike doesn't have any. It's honestly really good. It's nice to have just kind of the wind, you know, especially on a hot day like this. I would probably rip a windscreen off. And the other reason people like windscreens is because of just sound. Wind is the loudest sound that you're going to hear when you're at speed. I just like to wear earplugs. Pretty much every time I ride, I wear earplugs, and I think everyone should do the same. Yeah, it sounds kind of lame. You got to put the earplugs in before your helmet, but it's makes such a difference. It's more relaxing. It gives you a little bit more focus because you're not focusing on, you know, the entire time, or just like wind. Really a lot easier to deal with. Less fatigue. On the topic of noise, let's talk about the exhaust, shall we? The exhaust on this bike. A lot of people have complained that the exhaust on this bike is too damn quiet. It's too damn quiet. So I don't mind the sound, but it's not like, ooh, every time you fire it up, oh, it sounds, ooh, you know. It's not one of those. Exhaust for this bike are pretty common mod. Honestly, for me, I don't, it's another thing. I think this bike in stock form is really quite good. Not something that bothers me enough. You know, $250 or so for an exhaust. Probably worth it to some people. Not really a big deal for me. What does this guy have? ZX-10R. Nice bike. That is a fast bike. Let me tell you. I bet he's just as miserable as me. I'm glad I didn't wear my leather jacket though. Let me tell you something. That guy's in leather. More power to you. But cannot do it. Oh my god, I feel it. Engine's hot. The first time I've noticed that, actually. Ugh. Yeah, it's about as much as I can do. Just wall of cars. Ease over. I mean, on the plus side, it'll be a very uneventful entrance onto the freeway. Oh, there's a utility truck in the left lane. No. This is a terrible ride. It's like a straight up garbage truck. He's just in the far left lane. Why would... Why you gotta be doing that? This guy feels my pain. That guy's on a straight up dirt bike. That guy's on a straight up dirt bike. I wonder how he's faring. That wasn't supposed to be a pun. That wasn't that. It's probably too late. The damage is done. I said faring. But yeah, we're cruising along here at 50. Nothing to report. I'm just doing my thing. The irony is I could have stayed on the main road and gone this fast, and I went on the freeway to well, I guess at least to be consistently this speed. So there's that. Got this breakdown. Maybe that's why this has gone a little bit slower. So what I'm learning is that here we go. Downshift and 70. Yep, that's about as fast as I care to go in this situation. But yeah, there's enough passing power. So you really shouldn't have trouble. I could have downshifted again if I really wanted to, but not super necessary. I'm also, like I said, I'm not tucked right now, so not the best aerodynamics. But I mean, this bike without the windscreen, it really doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me just being upright on the freeway. It's comfortable. The wind just kind of hits you straight on. Not really the worst thing for me. I don't mind it. Cruising right along here. I do think there might be a bit of a dip in power just after 5,000 RPM. You kind of like, it'll kind of wait, and then once you get beyond it, then you're kind of there, you're chugging along. But actually this bike has a very flat torque curve, very linear power. nice and easy to get a hang of. Like I said, especially if you're doing something like, you know, if you really need to have a good feel for the bike, like on a track, or if you're learning. No surprises here. It's not like an SV650 where you got like torque, and then it kind of like dips off. But you have like immediate torque. This bike's just very easy, progressive build. And got this exit coming up. Hit the brakes. Downshift. And just roll on through this turn. I'm not going to be pushing it super hard. This is, you know, pretty standard. This is the kind of thing I do in my car, honestly. Not really going nuts with it. Sticking around 50. 55. Accelerate out of it. Uneventful. Happy to lean. Happy to do its thing. Anyways, I think I've said about everything I can think of for this video. Don't want to waste your time too much. But I've been Never a Dull Moment. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in more motorcycle content, do feel free to check out Bikes and Beers. It's our podcast. I have different guests on. We talk about motorcycles, we drink beer. It's great. And for other content, please subscribe. I will be seeing you soon. Have a great day.